The Backrooms, an incredibly expansive, seemingly infinite dimension with multiple different levels resembling corrupted uncanny valley liminal spaces. If you don't know what the Backrooms are, you should definitely watch my other stuff explaining it and subscribe, or you'll have no chance of surviving if you no clip. With that out of the way, let's take a look at more of the creatures skulking around these moist corners. Bursters are small, vaguely humanoid, quadruped-like creatures that scurry around the halls of the Backrooms. I like to call them pimple chimps. Their back legs are distended to look more similar to a canine than that of a human crawling. The burster's skin is covered in lesions and pustules that are filled to the brim and leaking with acidic fluid. These creatures will stay in the fetal position until another living being happens across them, at which point they will pop their weird, gross back pimples all over the victim, spraying their entire body with incredibly potent acid, dissolving them in a matter of minutes to hours. The burster will wait for the victim to succumb to their wounds out of laziness before consuming them. They can also damage themselves with the acid, and like that guy who drowned in his own cum, many of the bursters succumb to their own fluids. Surgeons appear to be a door in a wall that is indistinguishable from the rest of the surroundings unless you are on the arm side. Oh yeah, there's like a buttload of arms on one side. These arms will lie dormant until a wanderer, animal, or other entity passes through the doorway. The arms will then spring to life and restrain the wanderer by the wrists, ankles, and neck before slicing off the extremities and sometimes the head of the victim with their scalpel-like professionally done acrylic nails. The arms will then skillfully rearrange and sew the victim Frankenstein Reanimator style back together in a new strange form. Occasionally, the surgeon will add additional body parts from a slit in the fleshy door frame, which I like to call the extremity hole. It's theorized that this extremitory repository is filled with pieces of former victims left over. In some scenarios, surgeons will combine wanderers with animals or entity parts, forming an entirely new abomination. They are very creative. The victim will somehow always survive, maintaining locomotion abilities in all of their limbs, including any new additional ones. While locomotion is technically possible, it results in extreme agony for the first several days after bodily reconstruction. The surgeon transforms the victim into one of a variety of forms, sometimes quadrupedal, sometimes just a leg and a head, sometimes they shuffle the functions of every hole in your face. Pretty random. Nah, I'm just kidding. I made this up because I'm obsessed with the movie Tusk and people didn't vote for me to cover it. I had you though, didn't I? Crawlers are the collective name for all those affected by an anomalous species of fungus native to the Backrooms. This fungus is visually similar to something I'm not gonna try to pronounce and just put it on screen. A strain of cordyceps fungi which zombifies insects, and currently has a lawsuit levied against it by the Last of Us development team. This fungus growth is extremely aggressive, and the infection is present in abundance on many levels. The crawler fungus can only spread to humans through liquids such as saliva, although it can spread to animals and insects via contact. It thrives in warm, dark, damp places like backrooms carpets or that weird space between your crotch and your thigh. This infection will progress, with the mold covering more and more of the organism until it's completely engulfed in it. As the infection progresses, the entity will become more and more aggressive and attempt to spread the infection through biting. In the final stages of infection, victims will have every bodily fluid in their system saturated with spores. And before you weirdos ask, yes, that fluid too, and this does technically mean that it is an STD. Ever hear of the numbed man? The numbed man knows as much about you as you do about it. If you learn his weaknesses, he learns yours. If you learn his strengths, he learns yours. If you learn what he jerks off to, the numbed man is a weak humanoid entity who can only be sensed by those he senses. For this reason, he has destroyed his own senses. He tore out his eyes in order to blind himself. He mangled his nose so that he couldn't smell. He punctured his eardrums to become deaf. He burned off his skin so that he could no longer feel touch. I mean, I guess that's pretty metal. He has no way to sense anyone nearby, and thus they cannot sense him either. This keeps him safe. The numbed man is not bound by any floor or physical barriers, but again, you basically have to overpower a confused, disoriented, senseless old blind man. Only thing is he floats and can walk through walls. See, I learned about him before you did, so he's gotta go through me to get to you. Floating and phasing through objects isn't really considered a power in my species. You actually get special parking if you can't do it. Last time I fought a blind and deaf man, I won. It wasn't even a competition. I absolutely fucking obliterated him. 2 for 2. That's it for this episode. If you want us to no Clussy back into the back rooms and take a look at the Entitties, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with all notifications so I know you want more. Before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to Awkward Mari on Instagram. They drew this still, and they're a great artist. They are now a cult classic, and you should go check out all the things on their page. Oh yay, my.
We start around the jaw and work down, separating flesh and neck muscles. All of the rest of the subject is just lifeless organic matter. But this, the brain, is isolated and alive and full of just as much electrical activity as the day before. At this point, you may ask, why?